Owners haven't received rent. Zhongmao town trembles. Bloodstains Zhongmao town. Businesses occupied without paying rent. Disgraceful. Only with force can you protect your rights. Otherwise, you'll face violence if you resist. A series of protests took place across mainland China. People felt unjustly suppressed. Millions of Chinese police poured into the streets to suppress the crowd, helpless before the overwhelming force of angry protesters. In recent times, people on mainland China are increasingly voicing their concerns through strikes and demonstrations. According to the Collective Action Map of Workers compiled by the China Labor Bulletin, CLB, from January to August of this year, there have been at least 875 strikes, protests, or demonstrations across China. Among them, Guangdong Province recorded the highest number with 287 events this year, involving at least 29,000 participants. Of these protests, 78% were marching demonstrations, 10% involved displaying protest banners. In a report, the CLB noted a significant increase in strikes and protests in 2023, with 741 events in the first half of the year compared to 830 events throughout 2022. These aren't isolated incidents, but rather reflections of the mounting economic pressures faced by many in China. As economic challenges persist, the ripple effect is felt widely, prompting more individuals and groups to take to the streets, making their grievances known across various regions of the country. This indicates an increasing instability in China's labor and economic environment. CCP limits New Year gatherings. Students protest erupt. As the year-end approaches in mainland China, the regime fears public gatherings during holidays such as New Year's. They previously prohibited Christmas Eve and Christmas Day celebrations and are now restricting New Year's gatherings. This indicates the regime's vulnerability. Recently, netizens have exclaimed that the CCP appears to face its most formidable generation. As 2024 New Year's approaches, notices across the country discourage New Year's Eve events. There are no countdown activities or large public gatherings, with police implementing crowd control measures. The CCP fears collective protests and thus cancels all festive celebrations, encouraging people to watch TV countdowns to 2024. Unexpectedly, a new generation of students has initiated school-based protests. Recently, students were exposed to extended school hours, no winter or summer breaks, and no weekends. Many schools have seen protests against these conditions, some successfully. It's peculiar that Chinese students are protesting for holidays, an unprecedented event globally. According to student representatives, thousands of male and female dormitory residents began protesting around 11 p.m. on December 28th. The school allowed security to record the protests, accusing students of inciting Hong Kong-like riots. Despite promises to negotiate without penalizing anyone, the school later reneged on its commitments. The students' primary demand was a 3-day break. The school's inconsistent actions led to disciplinary measures against the protesting students. However, the student representative expressed gratitude for the unity and courage displayed by his classmates. Recently, freshmen at Tianjin Academy of Fine Arts posted banners criticizing the institution's teaching arrangements. They opposed a mandatory year-long realistic painting training for all disciplines, which they deemed irrelevant to their future professions. The school removed these banners, but students marked the locations, stating, "Here, there were once 3 A4 papers." The school then painted over these markings. In defiance, students remarked the spots, asserting, "Here, there were once 3 A4 papers." Protest erupts over Ningling killings. CCP blocks internet and highways. At another secondary school, a horrifying incident unfolded. A 14-year-old boy from Ningling County, Shangqiu City, Henan Province, was suspected of being tortured to death by school teachers. However, the school claimed it was a suicide, reigniting public attention. As authorities deployed a large number of special police and officers to enforce citywide lockdown measures, tens of thousands of Henan residents bravely resisted the oppressive force. In reality, had the school and local government not concealed the truth and allowed a proper police investigation, such a large-scale public event might not have erupted. Currently, the Communist Party has deleted all online posts and articles related to this incident. Those who exposed the incident have reportedly been arrested by local police. It's said that the Henan Provincial Public Security Department has issued orders to suppress any emerging dissent. On the afternoon of December 24th, his parents finally saw their son, but were presented with a harrowing sight. Yet, the school insisted he died from falling off a building. The Communist Party's forensic department verbally supported this claim, but did not provide a written report or specify the time of death. The grieving parents demanded surveillance footage from the school, which was staunchly refused. Subsequently, the boy's family placed wreaths outside the school gates, holding his photo to demand justice. A large crowd gathered, including bystanders and police, leaving the officers speechless. Simultaneously, as the public learned of the injustice, their anger surged like a tide in support of the grieving parents. Flowers piled up at the school gate in memory of the deceased child. More and more people joined protests at the school, breaking through police barriers and school gates, heading straight to the school leaders' offices. They vandalized the offices and surrounded the leaders' black cars, demanding answers. Outside the school, intense clashes erupted between the public and the police. Faced with the protesting crowd, the police retreated repeatedly. Suddenly, a man in white shouted, "Halt!" and charged at the police. The crowd followed, driving the police away, though many were arrested in the process. Protesters chanted slogans and stormed the county government building. However, instead of addressing the public's grievances with fairness and justice, authorities escalated their control measures. Subsequently, citizens spotted dozens of special police buses rushing to the scene for stabilization. At the same time, residents of Ningling County received intimidating notices. Everyone was advised to avoid Ningling County and the Yuhua Garden area. All entrances to the county were under strict control, warning that anyone apprehended would bear the consequences themselves. Those with matters to attend to in the county were told to postpone their visits. Especially for parents whose children attend school in Yuhua Garden, they were cautioned against sharing negative information on social media platforms. Anyone found disseminating such information would face corresponding legal consequences. On the same day, Shangqiu City declared partial closures of highways, citing heavy fog as the reason. Soon after, all highways within Shangqiu jurisdiction were shut down. By December 29th, every intersection in Ningling County was heavily guarded by special police. Private vehicles were strategically placed across key intersections to block roads. Despite this, numerous residents took to the streets. Due to police roadblocks, many were trapped outside schools. Police officers, armed with pepper spray, shouted at the crowd, urging unrelated individuals to leave, stating the matter did not concern them and warning against any disruptions. Eventually, the authorities took a severe measure. They cut off the internet. While the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs proclaimed externally that China is the safest country in the world, their own foreign minister, Qin Gang, remains conspicuously absent. The entire city demanded truth from the government. Instead of revealing the facts, the authorities not only resisted transparency, but also resorted to suppressive tactics. Zhongmao town owners rally against rent and police violence. Recently, on December 9th, hundreds of property owners in Zhongmao Town, Changsha District, Hubei Province, gathered to demand the return of their shops and protest against police violence. To voice their grievances, these owners marched through a shopping center, banging pots and pans and honking horns. Their primary concerns were long overdue rent payments by the tenants and alleged police brutality. This demonstration persisted into the evening, with police attempting to seize banners from the property owners, leading to minor clashes. Videos captured numerous property owners inside and outside the shopping center, holding white fabric banners with messages like, "Owners haven't received rent," "Zhongmao Town trembles," "Blood stains Zhongmao Town," and "Businesses occupied without paying rent. Disgraceful." Frustrated by the inability to collect rent from their shops, around 3,000 property owners have been actively defending their rights since 2019. In response to the situation, online commentators remarked, "Only with force can you protect your rights. Otherwise, you'll face violence if you resist." Another stated, "The government's solution is delay tactics. If these owners are cornered, the issue might be resolved. Investing in China, with its market economy governed by a regime with no lower limits, inevitably leads to such predicaments." Zhuji Pearl Trade Hub faces protests amid economic strain. The economic downturn experienced in China has given rise to significant disruptions, with various instances of scallion cutting sparking extensive and continuous public demonstrations. Zhuji City, often hailed as the global epicenter for freshwater pearl trade, stands out as a paramount hub in this industry. Since its establishment in 2006, covering a sprawling 1.2 million square meters, this city has been instrumental in catering to the needs of more than 60 nations and territories. Impressively, it commands a dominant presence by controlling a staggering 80% share of China's freshwater pearl market and over 75% on a global scale. This signifies its unparalleled stature as the preeminent pearl distribution center worldwide. Recent reports circulating online shed light on a significant development, a profound gesture of protest by over 1,000 merchants based in the International Pearl City and Huadong International Jewelry City within Chuyu City, Jiangxi Province. Their unified action on December 8th involved a collective shutdown of their businesses, driven by grievances over an exorbitant six-fold surge in rental costs, underscoring the mounting economic challenges faced by stakeholders in the region. Langfang merchants protest rent hikes and contract breaches. Additionally, there's news circulating online that over 1,000 merchants at an international auto parts center in Langfang City, Hebei Province, staged a collective strike on November 13th. They were protesting against the center's violation of contracts and unjustified rent hikes. Some of the merchants claimed they had already paid their rent and management fees for October. However, in November, the management allegedly breached the contract by demanding an additional management fee of over 20,000 yuan. A video clip showed a significant gathering of merchants outside the International Auto Parts Center, purportedly voicing their dissent by shouting together, "Return our homes! Return our homes!" Clashes erupt as authorities attempt to close canal in Shuangcheng. On August 5th, the Water Conservancy Department of Shuangcheng District, Jia Urban City, Heilongjiang Province, dispatched personnel to Tianjin Town to close a canal. Concerned citizens, fearing potential flooding, confronted the department's workers. Videos captured the scene where armed forces, special police, regular police, and civilians clashed throughout the day. One video recorder commented, "All police forces from Shuangcheng District are here," while another observed, "The police are monitoring the site, preventing citizens from approaching. Let's see how the ordinary people can counter the authorities." Another individual pointed out the challenging situation, noting the presence of over 100 police officers. In another video, residents continued their resistance late into the night. "It's past 8 p.m. and it's not over yet. The district leaders and department heads are present. We won't let them close the canal," the video recorder stated. Some residents even threatened to drown themselves if the canal was closed. Footage from the evening of August 5th showed citizens jumping into the water to obstruct officials from closing the canal, leading to multiple cries of alarm from onlookers. Some claimed the situation was nearing a tragic outcome, with others alleging that police had used pepper spray to disperse the crowds. Beijing flood strategy sparks local resistance. Since late July, Beijing has been releasing floodwaters, causing areas like Mentuju and Fengshan to flood. The Jeizhou district, under the jurisdiction of Boding City, Hebei Province, faced severe flooding. Online rumors suggested that Tracchow was being used as a flood storage area to protect Beijing and its adjacent Xi'an. As Beijing is the political and economic heart of China, and the development of the new Hong'an district is part of the Millennium Plan, expert Wang Weiluo, residing in Germany, claimed authorities redirected flood waters to protect the new district. Local residents oppose this decision. A video from August 4th showed villagers from Gaobeidian, Baoding City, defending their levees as government workers attempted to dig into them, leading to confrontations. Beijing, Red Cross, faces criticism over donations. In July, the Beijing Red Cross released a list of clothing donations, including a substantial contribution from the Wumu fashion company worth 1.5 million yuan. However, the specifics of the donation, including 4,640 suits and 1,020 vests, drew public ridicule. Netizens joked, questioning the relevance of formal attire for flood victims. As discussions swirled, many speculated on the authenticity and intentions behind these contributions. Despite attempts by the Beijing Red Cross to control the narrative, many continued to mock the organization's efforts, leading to more controversy and skepticism online. CPC's global ambitions spark international concern. Amidst rising discontent among the Chinese populace protesting against their government, the Chinese Communist Party, CPC, has intensified its suppressive tactics, aiming to strengthen its global influence through political maneuvering. Xi Jinping, the CPC's leader, has vigorously pursued the Chinese dream, seeking to enhance China's international stature and sway. Such ambitions have manifested in the CPC's aggressive crackdown on religious freedoms and genocidal practices, especially in regions like Xinjiang and Tibet, drawing widespread international condemnation. Despite global outcry and warnings from various nations and entities about the repercussions of these actions, the CPC's stringent control mechanisms within China limit citizens' access to information, obscuring their understanding of the party's directives and policies. In response to these developments, nations and the international community must rise and implement specific measures. These measures encompass raising awareness and readiness within the international community against threatening behaviors from the CPC, as well as strengthening cooperation and solidarity among countries to counteract and prevent the CPC's expansion of power on the global stage. I have no education, no job, and no income. Nowadays, with many companies closing down, it's difficult to find work, even for delivering takeout. I don't know what else I can do in this vast city of Beijing. The man in the video shares his surprise at the desolate state of these physical stores, questioning how the owners manage to survive even without customers. Workers, mass staff leave the city, return to their homeland to find new jobs and new life. The man in the video expresses that life has become difficult for native Beijingers in Beijing. He states, "I'm 30 years old this year with a Beijing hukou. I have no education, no job, and no income. My wife and I have no children, no elderly to rely on, and we can't even qualify for social assistance. Nowadays, with many companies closing down, it's difficult to find work, even for delivering takeout. I can't afford to buy an electric bike, so I can't join Didi, ride-hailing service. My Wuling Hongguang car also doesn't meet the qualifications. I don't know what else I can do in this vast city of Beijing. It seems that ordinary native Beijingers like us are not accepted." This reflects the challenges faced by some individuals in Beijing, such as unemployment, financial difficulties, and limited opportunities. The speaker highlights the struggle of not being able to access certain jobs or social assistance programs due to various factors. The overall tone suggests a sense of frustration and helplessness in the face of the economic challenges in the city. There is a noticeable decrease in the number of people discussing buying houses. Previously, there were various hesitations about whether to make a move, but now there are basically no similar voices. A very simple reason for this phenomenon is that it is a clear sign that the effectiveness of real estate stimulus policies has bottomed out, indicating a potential economic downturn in China. The video then shows the economic challenges in Beijing, with numerous physical stores closing down. The narrator takes viewers to an electronics market on Yuquan Road, highlighting the empty spaces and emphasizing the difficulties faced by businesses. The footage also covers the bleak situation in a tea city in Maliandao, once a thriving hub for tea trading, but now deserted with very few customers. The man in the video shares his surprise at the desolate state of these physical stores, questioning how the owners managed to survive even without customers. He emphasizes the overall economic challenges faced by Beijing, including the closure of 50% of restaurants on a snack street and the struggles of cleaning personnel who find fewer shops than expected due to closures. Furthermore, the video discusses the decline in the Korean population in Beijing's Wangjing area, previously known as Little Korea, suggesting that around 200,000 Koreans have left Beijing. The video implies a trend of foreign nationals, including Koreans, leaving Beijing, impacting the city's international character. This is an airport, highlighting the absence of personnel even in the water and electricity department. The customs officers and other staff members at the airport seem relatively inactive. The footage reveals a scarcity of individuals engaged in customs declaration and immigration processes, particularly on flights arriving from the UK and the US, where passenger numbers are notably low. The narrator expresses astonishment at the desolate state of the airport, showcasing another, more spacious waiting hall where scarcely anyone is present except for a few on-duty staff. This underscores a significant slowdown in airport operations, starkly contrasting the bustling scenes observed in the past. China's mainland is facing an economic downturn, real estate companies are collapsing, and the stock market and currency exchange rates are declining. The CCP authorities claim that they need to tighten their belts to weather tough times. Mr. Jiang, a resident of Liaoning, describes the situation as terrible, saying, "We ordinary people haven't looked forward to celebrating the new year since a long time ago. Your citizens are supposed to achieve communism and share common prosperity, but it's all a deception. The corrupt officials have all become wealthy, and they want us to endure hardship now. We've never had good days since the day you witnessed. Good days. We've never had them." Mr. Huang, a mainland media person, states that the economic crisis in mainland China is intensifying, potentially leading to social unrest. The situation is not optimistic, and if current policies do not improve, there will be a surge in unemployment and many people will struggle to afford food. Society may enter an unstable state. Mr. Peng, a business owner engaged in commercial operations in Tianjin, believes that China's economy may worsen day by day and people are hesitant to consume. They can only tighten their belts to get by. In 2023, many industrial bankruptcies will occur in various industries. Most sectors are shrinking, making it difficult to make money. The overall macroeconomic environment is not optimistic, and we may live in a time that is worse than the previous year, he says. Chinese new energy car companies, supported by long-term subsidies from the Chinese Communist Party, have achieved low-cost and rapid export growth of electric cars. However, the quality and design of Chinese electric cars have been widely criticized. A car repairman questions the design of Chinese electric vehicles, wondering why the batteries are placed at the lowest point. He criticizes the design and suggests that it may lead to serious consequences in the event of obstacles on the road. He criticized domestically produced electric cars in a video he shot. "Here I go again, criticizing our designers. I don't understand this issue at all. I'd like to ask, why did he design it this way?" Using a hybrid car as an example, the mechanic expressed his inability to understand why the vehicle's battery is located at the lowest point of the chassis, which could easily lead to battery combustion accidents. He further explained, "Traditional gasoline cars know to place the fuel tank and all rear components lower than the front chassis. In other words, if there's a big rock in front, it should hit the subframe first, causing the car to slow down. If the battery is at the lowest point, isn't that dangerous? Did the designer intentionally leave this bug to make the vehicle scrape prematurely? If it hits the battery, it's the end of this car. Either it catches fire or becomes scrap. Some may say, just scrap it, there's insurance. You really don't understand the situation of scrapping a car. Don't rely on insurance. Don't think the insurance company will fully compensate you. The mechanic warned car owners, you should avoid hitting this battery first, but the manufacturer hasn't helped you avoid it. It has opened the first line of defense. If the first line of defense can slow down the impact, we can avoid hitting the battery. However, if the battery is lower than the subframe, it will smoothly pass the obstacle and hit the battery. If it were a fuel tank, it would leak or catch fire. Isn't it the same for the battery? Moreover, the battery is much more complex. Either it catches fire or becomes scrap. Regarding this video, many netizens commented, as long as it looks good, has many features, and is cool, it will sell. It's deliberately designed to make the car break down sooner, get damaged, and spend money to buy a new one. Overtaking on a bend, imitation failure. Strictly speaking, this design does not comply with safety standards. Such cars should not be allowed on the market. On January 3rd, mainland media Zinc Finance published an article stating that in the past 2 years, many domestic car companies have successively launched their high-end sub-brands, introducing high-priced models. However, a high price does not equate to a luxury car, and a luxury brand cannot be built in just a few years. The article states that many car companies are targeting the high-end market in China, but there are not many brands that can truly uphold the word luxury, especially for some new forces in the auto industry. Their high-priced cars, so-called luxury, only stays in the high selling price. As for the advanced technology, safety factors, unique design, and other elements that luxury cars should match, it is quite messy. In March 2023, a user of Xiaopeng Motors complained that during face recognition, they had to get out of the car and half kneel on the ground to look at the camera. Some netizens joked, you have to bow to the car before driving to prevent the car's spirit from being displeased. In addition, high-end brands under Geely Motors have been exposed to many faults, and BYD Motors' air vents were found to spray a large amount of aluminum hydroxide. BYD Motors responded officially, this phenomenon is caused by individual abnormal evaporators in the Dolphin model's air conditioning. After testing, the main component of the powder is aluminum hydroxide. Tesla China recalls 1.61 million vehicles, citing safety hazards. The China Market Regulation Administration announced today that Tesla is recalling over 1.61 million electric vehicles in China due to safety concerns. This recall covers all imported and domestically produced models, setting a new record for the highest number of recalled vehicles by Tesla in China. According to the China State Administration for Market Regulations announcement on the 5th, Tesla filed a recall plan. Immediate recall of some imported Model S and Model X electric vehicles produced between October 26, 2022 and November 16, 2023, totaling 7,538 vehicles. The vehicles in this recall range may have a logic control issue with the door unlocking mechanism. In the event of a collision, the non-collision side door latch may detach from the locking bolt, leaving the door in an unlocked state, posing a safety hazard. Immediate recall of some imported Model S, Model X, Model 3, and domestically produced Model 3 and Model Y electric vehicles produced between August 26, 2014 and December 20, 2023, totaling 1.6 million vehicles. The vehicles in this recall range may have an increased risk of collision when the Level 2 combined driving assistance tool is mistakenly used in the presence of automatic steering assistance. This poses a safety hazard. Tesla will use over-the-air OTA technology to push newly developed features, including additional automatic steering control and related prompts, to vehicles within the recall range. This aims to further encourage drivers to fulfill their driving responsibilities and comply with driving regulations, reducing the risk of collisions caused by misuse of the steering assistance function. Huawei's electric car accused of technical fraud. Recently, the Chinese automotive information platform, D-Car, revealed the test results of about 20 hybrid models' pure electric range attainment rates in severe cold conditions. The test results showed that the Huawei SAIC Motors Wanji M7 extended range version, designed by Huawei, ranked last with an attainment rate of only 31.6%, causing controversy. China's chip technology breakthrough again? Foreign media dissects Huawei laptops, 5nm chips from Taiwan. In August last year, Huawei announced its Mate 60 Pro smartphone, which used the 7nm processor from SMIC, creating a sensation in both the US and China. To assess Huawei's technological breakthroughs, research company Tech Insights dissected Huawei's latest laptop, the Qingyun L540, and found a Kirin 9006C processor manufactured using TSMC's 5nm process around the third quarter of 2020. According to Bloomberg, the chip was produced by TSMC in 2020, during the time when the U.S. imposed sanctions on Huawei and cut off TSMC's supply to Huawei. It is still unclear how Huawei obtained this processor from more than 3 years ago. The report suggests that Huawei, listed on the U.S. Entity List since 2019, continued to stock up on crucial semiconductors even before TSMC stopped accepting Huawei's orders in 2020, when the U.S. began cutting off Huawei's global supply chain of components and equipment. Regarding this, Bloomberg reached out to representatives from Huawei and TSMC, but neither provided an immediate comment. CCP's General Secretary recently admitted in a political gathering that China's economic recovery is still at a critical stage. According to the Financial Times, Xinhua's report on December 8th cited Xi, adding that China's development situation is complex. Monopolizing power in China since 1949, CCP leaders often only talk about good things to polish their faces and their party's leadership abilities, thereby maintaining power for themselves and their party. Xi's rare admission of difficulties partly shows the dire situation of the Chinese economy after 3 years of CCP applying a zero-COVID policy based on lockdown, along with other policies considered to hinder development. Official statistics are showing contradictions, more or less confusing, observing the true state of the Chinese economy at present. For example, some statistics show that China's dollar-denominated exports turned slightly positive in November after a long period of stagnation. Meanwhile, statistics show that China's manufacturing activity was weakening. In addition, the Chinese regime has long been criticized for its practices of strictly censoring information, hiding the truth, and falsifying statistics. These make it very difficult for the outside world to know what is happening in China. However, there are 3 phenomena that the Chinese regime has been unable to hide and are reflecting the current dire state of the Chinese economy. The first phenomenon is that rich Chinese people are fleeing the country because they are no longer confident in the short-term recovery of the Chinese economy and the policies of the CCP. This has been happening on a large scale. Beijing has been unable to stop it from happening, nor prevent insiders from talking about it, so the world knows it quite well. The second one is that many companies in China have announced plans to take a long Lunar New Year holiday because there are no orders. This also leaves the Chinese regime with no way to prevent a large number of workers at the companies from leaking information to the media. The third one is a series of stores closing due to sluggish business, showing the difficulty of the economy. This phenomenon is happening on a large scale. Many insiders can leak, and many people know about this incident, which also forces. The Chinese regime has to stand by and watch the information about this phenomenon flood the media. The rich fled from China. The CCP used the concept of common prosperity to promote so-called equitable wealth redistribution. Some Chinese observers believe that the CCP is in fact seeking to confiscate the assets of wealthy individuals and that adopting this strategy is to compensate for the empty treasury while China's economy is in crisis. China expert Mike Sun told the Epoch Times that he does not trust the leadership of the CCP and neither do the Chinese people, which is why the people just want to leave China. On November 28 and 29, CCP's General Secretary visited Shanghai, China's financial center. Chinese state media reported that the purpose of Xi's visit was to urge the financial sector to better serve the national economy. Commenting on Xi's official trip, Sun said that in fact, China's A-shares are falling, especially financial stocks. Therefore, no matter how CCP's leaders try to reassure the market, it is ineffective. This means that China's overall economic situation is quite dire. Sun said that currently only the CCP is undertaking major investment projects. It is spending on big infrastructure projects. Meanwhile, private enterprises do not do that because they no longer have faith in CCP policies and the vitality of the Chinese economy. They are looking to redirect investment abroad instead of domestically. Sun added that many of his friends with large assets in China now want to leave. However, one of the major challenges they face is not being able to take their money out of the country. Beijing strictly controls foreign currency reserves. One of the measures they use is to limit Chinese people from bringing USD abroad. According to regulations, Chinese people are only allowed to bring a maximum of 50,000 USD each year when leaving the mainland. To cope with this control, according to Bloomberg, many rich Chinese have turned to the shadow banking system to ask them to secretly transfer more money abroad. On November 28, the New York Times reported that rich people in China have in many ways transferred hundreds of billions of dollars out of the country this year to invest in gold bars and real estate in foreign markets. Jay Zhao, the CEO of Tokyo-based online real estate agency GA Technologies, said that the Chinese have become the primary buyers for apartments in the Japanese capital priced at $3 million or more, and they bring with them suitcases full of cash for payment. Sun said the Chinese regime has recognized the problem and is targeting China's shadow banking system to prevent foreign currency outflows. He said Macau used to be a center for the shadow banking system, but now this route to transport foreign currency abroad has been blocked by Chinese authorities. Sun said that a few of his friends shared about how to transfer money abroad. Accordingly, cash is transported from the mainland by speedboats to Macau or some countries in Southeast Asia. The money is then transferred to other countries through legal means. Rich people in China can also choose another money transfer method that is not subject to CCP supervision. That is through import and export companies. People want to transfer money to buy products from an import-export company at a very high price. The company then cooperates with international partners to transfer money abroad through the company's account. Finally, they return a portion of the money to the customer after retaining a portion equal to the actual selling price of the product that the two parties had implicitly agreed upon. The Chinese have also used a less complicated method of directly taking yuan out of the country and exchanging it for dollars in other countries or the United States, although this method has many potential risks. Meng Jun, a Chinese businessman currently living in exile in the United States, told the Epoch Times that some luxury real estate transactions in Southern California have been conducted using Chinese currency. Nikkei Asia reported that data from China's State Administration of Foreign Exchange, SAFE, in September showed net capital outflows from the mainland of $53.9 billion, the largest since January 2016. In August, China's capital account saw capital outflows worth $49 billion, the largest figure since December 2015. Capital outflows also caused China's yuan exchange rate to fall to its lowest level in 16 years. Meng said the Chinese regime's treasury is now running out of money, so it is trying to seize the assets of China's wealthy. He added that actually, it has been doing this for a while, but quite discreetly, but now it is doing it openly and blatantly by threatening tax audits and capital controls. The New York Times reported in October that according to a factory owner in Shanghai, CCP officials allegedly used bank records to target individuals with liquid assets of at least 30 million yuan, about $4 million or more, requiring them to hand over 20% of their assets or endure a full tax audit. Meng said that therefore the rich were forced to rush to sell their assets and transfer money abroad by any means. Many people will even move abroad to live completely to ensure their life safety, because if they wait any longer, they may not even be allowed to leave China. A long Lunar New Year and restaurants closed en masse. The tragic situation of the Chinese economy is also reflected in the fact that since August, the Chinese regime stopped publishing youth unemployment data after the figure rose to a record high since it began collecting the type of data in 2019. The skyrocketing unemployment rate is partly reflected in the fact that in the region with the most industrial zones in the country, such as Guangdong, many companies have a lack of orders, leading to production stagnation. They were forced to give workers a long Lunar New Year break. Daji Yuan reported that after an aluminum company in Foshan, Guangdong announced a 6-month Lunar New Year holiday due to no orders. Several other companies in Guangdong also announced the same. Lunar New Year holiday of workers in these companies lasts from 27 days to 3 months. Recently, Canyon 88, a website specializing in food services in China, surveyed many commercial areas and neighborhoods in Guangzhou, Guangdong Province. At the same time, Canyon 88 also interviewed people working in street restaurants in other places such as Beijing, Chengdu, Shenzhen, and Shanghai. A consumer in Guangzhou said that she was truly shocked by the speed with which street restaurants in Jiangnangxi closed. She said that on Monday, she ate at a noodle shop, but when she passed by on Saturday, she saw that it was already closed. Jiangnangxi, where this person often comes, is one of the famous commercial areas in Guangzhou. There are many large commercial complexes around, and the bustle here is famous everywhere. The consumer said that a few days ago, she passed by and saw a vermicelli noodle shop that closed in August and was still empty, so after nearly 4 months, this shop has no one taking over. Walking along a 2-kilometer-long food street in Jiangnangxi, which used to be bustling, now more than 10 restaurants have had to close. Most of the closing restaurants are single ones, but a few are chain ones. There are restaurants located next to each other that are all closed at the same time. On Tianhe-Nanyi Road, known as Guangzhou's Tea Street, the shops had to close because the slowdown in business became even more severe. On the day Canyon 88's people visited, 6 tea shops in the area were closed, and a few others had signed up to transfer the shop to someone else. According to Da Jiyuan's sources, the difficult culinary business is not limited to Guangzhou. In other bustling places in Shenzhen, Beijing, Chengdu, Guizhou, Changsha, and so on, the situation is also similarly very tragic. The owner of a fast food restaurant in Fujian that closed in November said he opened this store in April. His store has an area of more than 50 square meters and a monthly rent of 7,000 yuan. Daily revenue is only 600 to 700 yuan. In half a year, he lost nearly 200,000 yuan. In the end, he was forced to close and sold all the equipment in the store and only recovered about 5,000 yuan. Data from Chinese business search site QCC shows that the number of newly registered restaurants across China from January to October this year was 3.5 million, 374,000 more than the same period last year. However, the total number of stores canceling business was 1 million, much higher than the number of 538,000 in the same period last year. Da Jiyuan cited many Chinese people in the culinary service, saying that doing business in China this year is more difficult than in previous years. On the one hand, consumption is decreasing and passenger traffic is decreasing. On the other hand, a large number of unemployed people poured into this industry, causing greater competitive pressure. Why do you have the right to terminate it unlawfully? You think it over. You're worthless here. I have people for the first and second instances of labor arbitration. I will make sure you cannot find a job for 2.5 years. And warned, dare to upload the video. Try it. The second-hand car market in China has collapsed, with many people selling their vehicles to cope with economic pressures. Porsche's sales in China have plummeted by 40%, resulting in significant losses. The luxury car market is no longer as appealing, as those with essential needs often lack the funds. Economic contraction has led to a sharp decline in the sales of German luxury cars worth millions, and the situation is even more worrying than the real estate market. This is the current situation, the collapse of the car market. I advise everyone not to leave their cars idle. Just drive them. Many people ask me why the second-hand car market is collapsing. I'll tell you, why do new gasoline cars collapse first? Because they can't be sold. Why can't they be sold? Because the prices of new energy vehicles are also dropping and they can't be sold either. Why can't new energy vehicles be sold? Do you know why? It's because the total number of cars in China has reached saturation, coupled with the poor economic situation this year. Most people looking to change cars are doing so for improvement purposes. Additionally, those who urgently need to buy a car tend to go for used cars, meaning they have an immediate need. In other words, they decide to change their car because it's getting cold, while those buying new cars are mostly looking to upgrade. However, they don't have the money to buy new cars, so the prices of cars start to decline. Previously, new energy vehicles were praised to the skies, but now they can't be sold. After they can't be sold, their prices start to drop. As they drop, the prices of new gasoline cars also start to decrease, which then leads to a decrease in the prices of used cars. Therefore, it's not a matter of someone upsetting the balance, it's an economic issue. The Chinese electric vehicle, EV sector, comprising over 200 companies, is expected to face increased pressure in 2024 due to slowing growth, heightened competition, and an intense price war. Analysts predict that many companies will need to address losses to avoid potential financial difficulties as fundraising becomes more challenging. Despite the rapid growth of China's EV market, investors are adopting a cautious stance due to escalating competition. The year 2024 is anticipated to be a turning point, with some electric car makers struggling due to poor performance. EV sales in mainland China are projected to grow by 20% in 2024, a slowdown from the expected 30% increase in 2023. Established players like BYD and Li Auto are among the few profitable companies in the crowded market, while newcomers like Xiaomi and Baidu pose a threat with their intelligent vehicle offerings. A new round of price cuts by major players, including BYD and XPeng, aims to attract buyers and meet sales targets. Startups are advised to prioritize realism over idealism as market competition intensifies. Some companies have initiated efficiency drives and cost-cutting programs to generate positive cash flow in the coming years. The price war trend is expected to continue as car makers strive to keep their best-selling models appealing to budget-conscious consumers. It's 6:30 p.m. now and there's no one in the store. The once lively and bustling restaurant industry, now you can't even see a single customer. Let me show you the market situation. Here's a vegetable vendor. There's no one. All are selling vegetables. All are owners. Take a look. Look at the emptiness around. There's no fairness, no bottom line anymore. Now it's all about the shippers pushing prices down. It was better a few years ago when my platform could negotiate prices better. In recent years, you see expenses for loading and unloading, increased consumer demands, low freight rates, and heavy fines. Look at this industry, it's in a deep downturn. Surviving in this industry is really difficult. It's such a large factory, and it has closed down. The name of the factory has been taken down. It didn't go bankrupt in the past few years, but it did this year. So, what's the use of having such a big factory? Right. Without strength, it collapses. If you have strength, you can still manage, endure the pressure. But if you can't, you'll go bankrupt. Many factories are closing down, especially in these economic downturns when factories lose orders. The wave of factory closures began last year, and this year it's just more severe. The entire Dongguan factory and its maximum closed capacity have decreased by 2/3. The future doesn't look good for factories worldwide. Earlier, a video claiming a female executive of the company illegally fired an employee went viral on the internet. In the video, Neo-Nexus technology executive Jing Yue claimed to have illegally terminated Sun. When Sun expressed the intention to wait for the results of the Labor Arbitration Department, Jing Yue said, "I have people for the first and second instances of labor arbitration," and threatened the employee, "I will make sure you cannot find a job for 2.5 years," and warned, "Dare to upload the video. Try it. I am terminating your employment unlawfully right now. I'm telling you, I am terminating it unlawfully." Why do you have the right to terminate it unlawfully? Me? I've violated the law? Can you control that? I've violated the law. Can you control it? Well, let's handle it according to the law. I've violated the law. Can't you understand what I'm saying? Listen to what the Labor Bureau says. Can't you understand what I'm saying? You can leave now. Go ahead. Leave now. Pack up your things right away. I'll wait for the labor arbitration's decision. I am revoking all your permissions now, and you are not allowed to enter my company again. You can go and wait for the lawsuit. I've told you, through the labor arbitration, first trial, second trial, I have plenty of time to wait for you. You try it. If you can't find a job in 2.5 years, you'll see. Don't even think about finding a job again. I'll have a meal next month. You think it over. You're worthless here. You have no legal awareness at all. Whether I'm here or not, I'm telling you, I'm breaking the law. I'll show you what I'll do to him. What kind of quality does this company have? It's this kind of quality. What are you going to do about it? Dare to upload something and try it? I'll call 110 right now. You violated the law. You admit you violated it first. I've told you, didn't I? I didn't stop you from suing me. Did I stop you? Those who often beg for a living know that begging is not that easy. There are always some people who keep saying that if you can't make it in the United States, you can resort to begging. But it's not as easy as they think. Here, my friends, begging is a common sight. The streets are filled with homeless people. To be successful at begging, you need to have connections, and each person giving you a penny or 100 pennies will only add up to $1. You have to beg for 12 hours a day just to earn a couple of dollars, and it's still not enough to buy a piece of fried dough. It's really not as easy as it seems. The latest data from the China Iron and Steel Association, CISA, indicates that China's steel exports are expected to surpass 90 million tons in 2023, historically second only to the export scale from 2014 to 2016, with import volumes around 7.6 million tons. In terms of export prices, the average unit price of China's steel exports was $947.4 per ton in the first 11 months of 2023, marking a year-on-year decrease of 32.2%. Industry insiders suggest that China's overall steel exports may remain at a relatively high level, although there might be a slight decline from the high growth observed in 2023. The significant growth in steel exports in 2023 can be attributed to various factors, including insufficient domestic demand, increased cost-effectiveness of domestic steel due to a rising price difference between domestic and foreign markets, growing infrastructure projects in South Asia, and global factors affecting other steel-producing regions. The main export destinations for China's steel in 2023 are expected to include Vietnam, South Korea, Thailand, and Turkey, with coated plates, hot-rolled rods and wires, and steel pipes being the major export categories. However, the CISA warns about trade remedy investigations against Chinese steel products, initiated by 5 countries globally in 2023, indicating potential risks of intensified trade frictions. Looking ahead, China's steel exports may face pressure in 2024 due to increased uncertainty in overseas economic growth and potential interest rate cuts by the U.S., leading to a rebound in the RMB exchange rate against the U.S. dollar. On the import side, China experienced a significant decline in steel imports in November 2023, with an average unit import price of 1,128.2 per ton, representing a year-on-year decrease of 6.4%. The import of finished steel remains relatively small, with a focus on the iron ore link in the steel industry chain. The industry may adopt countercyclical control measures to encourage demand in various sectors and maintain stability in downstream consumption. Chinese nickel miners in Indonesia face threat from falling prices. The fervent nickel exploration undertaken by Chinese mining companies in Indonesia over the past decade may face a downturn due to the decreasing prices of this metal, commonly utilized in steel production. This decline in prices renders the processing of nickel in the Southeast Asian country less appealing for Chinese producers. In September, the state-owned behemoth, China Baowu Steel Group, opted to suspend its intentions to acquire nickel assets in Indonesia from Tsingshan Holding Group Co., a privately owned Chinese company. The potential deal, valued at a staggering $4 billion, had been under negotiation for over a year, undergoing scrutiny from various ministries and regulators. Despite dispatching independent directors to assess Tsingshan's operations in Indonesia in late September, Baowu has not divulged their findings. In the vast landscape of China's economic powerhouse, a silent but potent revolution is brewing amongst its youth. This is not a revolution of arms or ideologies, but a revolt of disillusionment and despair, rooted in the fundamental desire for a semblance of normalcy in their lives. The rallying cry, "We just want to live in a normal world," encapsulates the sentiment of countless jobless Chinese youth who find themselves ensnared in the intricate web of political machinations and economic disparity, perpetuated by the Chinese Communist Party. In 2023, the Chinese government failed to quash Chinese workers who initiated a rights protest in deep resentment. The Hong Kong-based non-governmental organization China Labor Bulletin, CLB, dedicated to promoting and safeguarding Chinese workers' rights, recorded 741 labor disputes and rights cases in the first half of this year, closely approaching the 830 cases reported for the entire year of 2022. At that time, CLB's analysis indicated that a significant increase in worker protests was primarily due to the global economic downturn caused by the pandemic. Specifically, a sharp decrease in overseas orders led to a wave of factory closures in coastal provinces, sparking workers' protest activities. However, the situation worsened in the second half of the year rather than improving. According to the latest data released by the China Labor Bulletin, as of November this year, there have been 1,604 workers' rights events nationwide, surpassing the annual figures of the past 3 years. Just in October, there were 225 workers' rights events, setting a record for the highest monthly count since the organization began collecting such data in 2017. These events occurred in every province and city, with Guangdong Province, home to numerous factories, leading with 294 cases. Moreover, out of the 1,604 rights events this year, 836 were related to the construction industry alone, exceeding the total number for the entire previous year. The economic situation in China deteriorated significantly that year. After the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, instead of showing signs of improvement, the economy faced challenges such as slowing growth, declining population, a struggling real estate sector, decreased foreign investment, and historically high youth unemployment rates. As numerous businesses closed down and orders plummeted, many workers faced severe wage cuts or delays. Frustrated and left with no alternatives, workers across the country began to protest and fight for their rights. Human rights organizations closely monitoring workers' rights in China reported that by the end of 2023, the number of labor movements and rights cases had doubled compared to the previous year. Starting from January 2023, labor disputes and conflicts in China occurred continuously throughout the year. On the 8th day of the new year, January 8th, Chongqing Zhongyuan Huiji Biotechnology Company, which had recently received the National May 1st Labor Award, initiated massive layoffs without coordination due to canceled orders. This action led to protests and violent clashes involving an estimated 20,000 workers. A day later, hundreds of employees from Hangzhou Aotai Biotechnology Company gathered outside the factory to protest wage issues and dismissals. The demonstration escalated as they marched to the local government building. Only after government intervention did the dispute eventually get resolved. Wang Jian, a China current affairs observer, stated that Chinese workers generally earn low incomes, making it difficult for them to save money. They need to receive enough to cover their monthly expenses, including supporting family members in their hometowns. If they don't get paid, they are likely to protest. Wang Jian believes that these workers, often referred to as on extended leave, are likely to join other workers in rights protection activities due to wage and unemployment issues. Zhou Aiden, a researcher at China Labor Bulletin, analyzed that during the past 3 years of the pandemic, workers' rights cases in China hit record lows. This was because, despite unemployment due to lockdowns and other pandemic measures, workers understood that it was not the fault of businesses or employers. Many could transition to temporary jobs like delivery or working in makeshift hospitals to address immediate unemployment. However, when the pandemic ended and workers could return to their jobs, the severe wage arrears due to significantly reduced orders became an escalating issue, leading to widespread protests. Companies, overwhelmed by unpaid wages, often faced insolvency, sparking collective actions from workers. One such example is the Hong Kong-funded company Ganghui Knitting Limited Company, located in Huidong County, Guangdong Province. Although it resumed operations in April, it announced dissolution in June, causing dissatisfaction among its employees. Ms. Zhang, an employee, revealed online that after resuming work in April, their salaries were only half of what they received in August 2019, with all previous subsidies canceled. Despite collective demands for wage compensation, the management remained indifferent, attributing the closure to workers' alleged poor performance, which damaged the company's reputation. Rao Zhaoyun, based in Dali City, Yunnan Province, worked as a painter for Xi'an Construction Group Limited Company on the Dali Future City project in 2022. However, by the promised end-of-year payment, he was owed 3,000 yuan and hasn't received it yet. He lamented, "Since the end of last year, they haven't called us back to work. We sought help from the Labor Bureau in March, with promises of payment in April, which never materialized. I've been doing odd jobs just to make ends meet." Rao Zhaoyun resorted to Twitter, hoping to garner attention and assistance. Out of the 1,604 workers' rights cases this year, over 3/4 were related to the construction and manufacturing industries. In contrast, cases related to the service industry were fewer, primarily because wage issues were not as prevalent. However, service industry workers faced other challenges. The Chinese government has long prioritized maintaining social stability and has historically suppressed mass and rights protection movements. However, with an overwhelming number of rights protection events this year, the government has been cautious, recognizing the difficulty in handling disgruntled workers. Consequently, this year witnessed rights protection movements among civil servants nationwide, presenting a severe governance crisis for the Chinese government. White paper protests decrying government policies rekindled dissent after Xi Jinping's decade of iron-fisted crackdowns. Over a year after the massive demonstrations against draconian lockdown rules, participants have an abiding new sense of strength and responsibility. In late November 2022, the Chinese internet was overwhelmed by expressions of grief and rage, despite the government's best efforts to maintain its strict censorship of online dissent. The outpouring was triggered by a fire in Urumqi, capital of the western region of Xinjiang, that killed at least 10 people after harsh COVID-19 rules reportedly restricted the movement of victims and rescuers. Even in Shanghai's Urumqi Middle Road, citizens protested throughout the night, with some chanting slogans demanding Xi Jinping step down. BBC reporter Ed Lawrence was beaten by Chinese police and briefly detained while filming the protests in Shanghai. In the subsequent days, tens of thousands of people, many of them young, took to the streets across China to protest the government's inhumane pandemic measures and denounce the authoritarian rule of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. The white paper protests, named for the blank sheets of paper that participants held up to mock official censorship, also drew widespread support from the Chinese diaspora, as thousands staged rallies in major cities from Paris to Sydney. Stringent censorship and surveillance, however, have made public commemorations inside the country nearly impossible. Words and names associated with the protests continue to be banned online. Protest sites are cordoned off by police, and those who participated in 2022 still face police harassment. Yet, as with the original protests, remembrance activities have spread internationally. At a rally in Washington, D.C., a Chinese man, wearing a mask to protect his identity, called himself a survivor of the CCP's zero-COVID policy and said it was his privilege and duty to speak up for the people who have been censored inside the country. During a commemoration rally in London, activist Ma Yue told Radio Free Asia, "It's very common to feel powerless as a Chinese person living in China. I wanted to get rid of that feeling. How? You do it through action." For many people in China, the biggest takeaway from the protests was that far more of their compatriots are deeply dissatisfied with the regime than they previously realized. Freedom House research shows that at least 72 protests were held across 17 provinces and regions during the last week of November 2022 alone. "I could not have possibly imagined that so many people would come today," a protester in Shanghai said on the popular Chinese-language podcast Booming Bai. Similar sentiments were shared among Chinese protesters in the diaspora. A student who organized an on-campus protest in the United States told me, "I thought only the people I already knew would turn up. Then I saw like 300 people." A computer programmer who attended a protest in front of the Chinese consulate in New York said, "I spotted my colleague in the crowd. All these years I have worked with him. I had no idea he loathes the CCP just as I do." The knowledge that I am not alone has been tremendously empowering. People have since felt emboldened to approach classmates and co-workers to talk about Chinese politics, to organize events offline, and to share information and thoughts online. Anonymous social media accounts born out of the protests continue to gain followings, serving as focal points for news and debate. Many young people recognize that they might be the oppressed in one context and the oppressor in another, and that the struggle for a truly democratic China, one that protects not just the political freedom of dominant, privileged groups, but also the dignity and rights of the marginalized and dispossessed, could take generations. This level of awareness regarding the complexity of authoritarian repression is unprecedented. Over 1 year on, those who took part in the protests, which hastened the end of China's harsh zero-COVID rules, are living between hope and fear. Angry and tired of crushing COVID lockdowns even as the economy sputtered, residents clashed with authorities in various places, from Shanghai to Guangzhou to Zhengzhou. The frustration soon morphed into something more towards the end of November when, over 5 days, people took to the streets across China in numbers not seen for decades, and in a rare show of dissent against the ruling Chinese Communist Party, Chinese people living abroad, in Japan, the EU, and the US, organized similar protests. In China, the crackdown was swift. Police used pepper spray to break up the crowds, and on-the-spot detentions and heavily policed streets kept them from regrouping. Beijing's extensive surveillance led to more arrests in the weeks and months after, but quietly. The actual number of those who were detained, or still remain held, remains unknown. Information around the white paper protests and other similar movements quickly falls into a black hole in China, Yicheng says. We do see more critical voices online now, but the state's censors swiftly kick into action. They simply silence what they don't like to hear or read. China's crumbling property sector sparks anti-CCP protests. According to Freedom House's data, more than 1,777 property-related demonstrations have taken place in the tightly monitored country between June 2022 and October 2023. Almost 100 demonstrations are taking place in China every month, with as many as 276 cities witnessing such protests regularly. In August 2023, about 100 workers-led protests took place, 3 times more than those that took place the same month a year earlier. And notably, these are not one-time incidents. According to Nikkei Asia, 1 in 7 protests were linked to past protests, which shows that the Chinese government has failed to address the concerns of suppliers, contractors, and construction workers. All of them have gone unpaid for months. On the other hand, millions of homebuyers are also writhing in anger after having channeled all of their investments into unfinished house projects, even as the country's top developers, including China Evergrande Group and Country Garden Holdings, default on their borrowings. China's property sector is the backbone of the Chinese economy, contributing more than a quarter of the world's second-largest economy. But the past few years have been a roller coaster ride. Investments have run dry. The housing market has cooled, which has led to a steep decline in prices. According to Nikkei Asia, investment and property sales by volume last month were both 11% lower in China than a year earlier. Centralized or organized movements can't occur in China under the watch of autocratic and megalomaniac CCP leaders. The crackdown on free speech in China has intensified, especially under President Xi Jinping's era, leaving no room for dissent. But that has not stopped people from forming a decentralized movement. Last year, such protests did bear fruits when the CCP was forced to abruptly end its draconian zero-COVID policy amidst mounting anger. This year, too, the crisis in China's property sector has tested people's patience for too long. As the Chinese government continues to adopt a heavy-handed approach towards dissent, and as courts continuously fail to address the grievances of the victims, this wave of protests will only get stronger and more lethal for CCP with time. Amidst this backdrop of simmering discontent, protests against the CCP have emerged as a potent expression of defiance and desperation. The rallying cry, "We just want to live in a normal world," serves as a poignant reminder of the profound yearning for stability, dignity, and freedom from the suffocating grip of political repression. The youth's demand for truth and transparency from the CCP is not merely a quest for accountability, but a plea for a life unencumbered by the shackles of authoritarianism and systemic corruption.